matches. Thanks, Ash. So things that will need to be done prior to game day, the different volunteers you may need, different equipment you may need, specifically with courts, especially if you have two teams and you're playing a school with two teams, game day responsibilities, and a bunch of supporting materials that we have available this year on our website. So prior to game day, the head coach and athletic director for the host school should meet at some point just to kind of go over the different things that are needed for that match. We call the event director just the lead person for the day. So a lot of times that would be the head coach. A lot of times some schools have that be the athletic director, but please make sure that as athletic directors, as bocce coaches, you guys are communicating with each other. So there are no blurred lines of who is responsible for what different parts that we go over here today. As you know, schools have to provide their officials. This is one difference that we are from the PIAA. We do not provide officials from PIAA. Officials are volunteers from your school, and the officials are, again, volunteer-based, so they're not paid. Also making sure who from your staff can make sure that there are tables and chairs set up, that the bleachers are pulled out, that the main scoreboard and timer is set up, if possible. If you have a sound system, if that's working, any other sort of logistics like that, making sure that athletic director and head coach know who's taking charge of which responsibilities. The timeline for a game, for game day, about 20 minutes to set up, warm up, have a coaches meeting, and submit the lineup cards. The setup can be done by the students. It can be done before the other team gets there. And if the other team is bringing their court, then it normally takes about 5 minutes to get that second court set up. Take about 5 minutes to welcome all the fans, have the national anthem either played or sang by a student, and then announce the rosters. Going into the games, if both schools have one team, you will play 2 30-minute games. The teams will play each other twice, and there will be about 5 minutes in between the games for the teams to regroup, where you can go and discuss the first game, take a bathroom break, get some water, whatever you may need in between games. And then you'll come back and start a brand new second game against the same team. If one school has one team and the other school has two teams, then again, 2 games will be played. The first game will be the school with one team versus team A from the other school with 2 teams. And then the second game would be the school with one team versus team B from the school with 2 teams. Again, 5 minutes in between. Then if both schools have 2 teams, you'll have 2 courts set up playing at the same time. So if that's the case, you're going to need double the volunteers that we discuss here today. So if we say you need 2 officials per court, you're going to need 4 total officials. If you need 1 scorekeeper, you're going to need 2. So however many courts you have set up is how many volunteers you'll need. You'll just double what we talk about here today. After the games are over, if there were to be a tie, then you can play a golden frame. The golden frame is an optional way to break a tie. If both schools agree that they do not want to play this golden frame, they do not have to play it. However, if one school wants to play and the other doesn't, then the schools will have to play this golden frame. We'll go into more detail about what golden frame is a little bit later in the presentation, but we do want to point out that it is optional and it is not tracked or recorded in any way by your Special Olympics liaisons. We are tracking only scheduled games. And so if at the end, it is a tie game, you're 1-1 at the end of the match, then that is what we're recording. We're recording the scores, but we are not recording this golden frame. That is for tiebreaker purposes if you want to go back and make announcements and say you won the match, but we are not tracking that. Finally, cleanup and departure. Takes about 15 minutes just to get all that PVC pipe put back away, the tape off the ground, cones and chairs put away. So this is just kind of an outline for knowing your timing in your gyms. Again, all matches must start after school, but looking at all of our schedules so far, hopefully your liaison would reach out and let you know if the timing doesn't work. Moving on, for volunteers, again, per court, you're going to need one scorekeeper. This could be a student or an adult. So not a student on your roster or your team, but if you have extra managers, if you have any students from student council or from your unified club, they could come be a scorekeeper. They could also be a recorder or timekeeper. So at each court, you're going to want somebody to have a stopwatch handy in case timeouts are called. And also, if you're not using the main scoreboard in the gym, and for example, if 2 courts are running, you're going to need a backup timer in case one court calls a timeout and the other doesn't. The time frames will be different for each court at that point. So make sure that the timekeeper has their stopwatch or timer available. Each court needs a head official. The head official must be an adult. So this could be another staff member from your school. This could be your special ed director. This could be another person from the athletics department, another coach, a friend, but that person must be an adult. Your second official, which we call the line official or the line judge, that could be an adult or a student. Again, not a rostered member of your team. We want those students who are competing to be fully focused on being a teammate and being a player, not being an official or a judge. Finally, one announcer or scoreboard operator. This person will be speaking into the microphone. They'll be announcing scores. They will put the main score up on the big scoreboard if your school has that working for the match. And they will be in charge of all of that. The gym setup, we're asking that if you do have bleachers to have them set up, pull them out so the spectators have a spot to sit. Use the electronic scoreboard when possible, but if you do need to use a stopwatch or a backup timer, please make sure it's visible enough so that the players and the coaches can see it for time management purposes. The public address system, whatever you use for your basketball games, use this for bocce. You're going to need 16 chairs for each team to set up at each end of the court. This is for the players. There will be also 4 chairs for the, if you need extra for paraprofessionals, one-on-ones. And then there will be coaches' chairs. Now, as coaches, you don't need to sit in that chair, but you need to remain near that chair. In the coaches' chair area is how we call it. Here's an example of what your gym setup could look like. You could have 4 chairs in a row on the side. One team would be all set up on one side. You could have the coaches on the same side by the score table, and then the other team would be on the opposite side. Try to have the chairs set up near the service box area so students aren't crossing over the service line. Here's another example. Sometimes the chairs could be set up in front and behind of each other. I personally think it is a little nicer when they're lined up. However, this is another variation as well with the coaches' chairs on opposite sides of the court. Items for your score table, the bocce score sheet. Your Special Olympics liaison will send you the link. It will be a Google sheet, and you can fill this out live as the match is going, whoever your scorekeeper is. If you prefer the pencil paper method, that's fine. You can print out these score sheets and have them fill it out paper and pencil during the match. However, at the end of the match, you will need to submit those scores to us via the Google Doc so we can track the points and the scores. I mentioned this earlier, a stopwatch and an extra timer. And if you are not using the digital scoring up on the that the basketball teams would use, have a flip chart available if the scoreboard is not an option. Next, at the announcer table or the main scoring table, that is where the announcer script would be. We do have a script. It is in your bocce coach's handbook. It's on our website as well. The lineup cards each coach will submit before the game, just basically saying who is here for each of your teams. We have Bocce spectator guidelines and a guide to help them understand different terms that they might hear and different situations they might see during a match. Again, if you have students who like to sing the national anthem, please invite them to do so. This can be team members, this can be players, this could be your chorus at your school, whoever you would want to have perform the national anthem, we welcome that. But a recording of that is also fine as well. You can play music before a game. We just ask that not have that music being played during the game. So in between the game, before the game, during warmups, that is all totally fine. But in between frames, that gets a little fuzzy, especially if there are two games going on, two matches at the same time. It can get a little loud if there is too much noise. So please only play the music before the game. Also, bring your coach's resource guidebook to your home bocce matches. If a rule needs to be looked up quickly, it's good to have that on hand. And also your liaison, your Special Olympic liaison's cell phone number if you need to make a quick text or phone call to reach out to one of us. Your officials need these 4 items here. They're going to need their white official polo. Your school should have some of these on hand. And if you don't yet, then hopefully you were able to order them in our uniform order that ended last week. They're going to need a tape measure, ideally a 25-foot tape measure. Sometimes those 12-foot or 10-foot ones just aren't long enough for measuring some of those longer balls. They're going to need a coin, and they're going to need their paddle. Now, if you received a paddle and it did not have the green back, most paddles do have the red. If it doesn't have green, you can paint that. You could cut out a piece of construction paper to make it green. Finally, if you could please ask your officials to wear black pants and sneakers when they're officiating, that would be preferred. We really, really like to try to stay away from jeans if possible. Next, game day responsibilities. Your SOPA liaison, so me, Ashley, Doug, Jen, Kim, Tracy, Lauren, I think I covered most of us, Jan, Eric, we will send you a Google Doc link for your specific game for that specific match. It will have some stuff already filled in, but the scoring part of it, your scorekeepers will fill out. This will be sent to you prior to your game. We will also attend matches when possible. We do have a ton of schools this year. We are actually, I believe, close to 300. Is that sound about right?
It does. I think we are over 300 now.
Yeah, in the Three Rivers region alone, we have 68 schools participating in interscholastic bocce and 160 matches. I know there's a lot over in Region 6. We have a lot of bocce going on, guys. So we will try our best to be at your matches, but we do prioritize our new schools because they do need a little more support. If you are a returning school or a new coach at a school that has been doing bocce for a while and you do need any help, please reach out far enough in advance so that way we can try our best to make some arrangement to have some support there for you. But just know that we have a lot of matches and a lot of new schools coming on board each year. Finally, after the match, we'll check in, especially if we don't see those scores in the Google Doc. We do, like I had mentioned, we do track everything. So it is very important that after the match, those scores are recorded correctly. This is what a score sheet looks like if you're not familiar. This is what we will send you in advance. The school's names will be listed at the top. The ball color will not be filled in yet. The coin toss will not be filled in yet. So, and probably the official won't unless we already know who that person is. We will have athletes and partners listed and just double checking to make sure that they are all correct with the ratios. And I did not stop. Am I still sharing? I just clicked a button on Zoom.
Yeah, you're good. You're still sharing. It's the score sheet.
All right. Sorry.
No,
so it'll also be blank for captains because each game, like when you turn in your game day lineup, this is where the scorekeeper can check off who are the captains for that game. And then After the coin toss, they will select what the ball color is and then put the school's names in the boxes where it says red or green down below to track the scoring. Athletic directors, please, 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 if school is canceled because of snow or ice or heat loss or literally any reason and you need to reschedule a match, please let us know. I have driven an hour to a match, got there and found out it was canceled. It's very disappointing and frustrating. So please, please, please just communicate, let us know, shoot us a text or an email. And if you need to reschedule, please work with the athletic director of the school you're supposed to compete against and look for another date to get rescheduled as soon as possible. Once you decide on a new date, make sure you let your coaches know, both coaches for both teams, so that they are aware of the change and the update. The announcer is in charge of the opening ceremonies. They will announce the teams that are playing on each court. If you only have one court, they'll just announce everybody. And then they will announce the scores after each game. As you know, at the 2-minute warning, they will make the announcement to let the officials know it is the 2-minute warning. And they will make sure the music's only played before the competition and in between games. Scorekeepers will make sure the score sheet is complete, change it on the scoreboard or the flip chart, use the stopwatch for timeouts, repeat the 2-minute warning announcement if necessary, make sure that a new frame is not started after the 2-minute warning unless a tiebreaker is needed, and then have the head coaches and officials confirm the final score. So there will be a little space in the score sheet that both coaches can sign. They can sign it digitally, type their name in, and then let the announcer know the final score. So here's an example of a score sheet filled in. For each frame, only one team can earn points. So in frame 1, if red gets 2 points, green gets 0. In frame 2, if green gets 1 point, red gets 0, etc. These score sheets auto calculate the score. The final score is listed at the bottom. So the final score would then be recorded. The winning team would be recorded in the box, and then the official and then both teams' coaches would sign in the signature section. Your officials. Please have your officials watch our How to Officiate Bocce video. A minimum of 3 times we recommend. We also are offering for the first time for our Unified Champion Schools officials a webinar specific to officials. They are welcome to join us. That webinar is tomorrow and it is at 3:30 again. You're also welcome to join if you like, if you wanted to get any more bocce officiating rules. So that is tomorrow. That is linked in our coaches resource guide. Please make sure your officials do know the rules though prior to the match, and don't just grab somebody out of the stands and say, please go officiate. We want these matches to be very competitive. We want fouls called. If someone steps over the line, that's a foot fault, that's a dead ball. Take the ball out of play. If you do notice as a coach, your official isn't making certain calls, please have a conversation with them. Please reach out to one of us or let us know. So maybe we could also follow up if necessary. But we do want fouls being called. We want it to be fair matches and fair games. Captains can request measurements. Coaches can request timeouts. So as those things are being requested, please be sure to for your officials to be sure to acknowledge those requests as they're coming in. And if the officials are ever unsure of which ball is closer, just measure it. But know that the time does not stop. The clock does not stop for measuring. The only time the clock stops is if a timeout is called or an extenuating circumstance happens. Next, the host site head coach. Before the match, make sure that both teams play only their rostered team members. Make sure both teams are in the appropriate uniform, which would be your bocce polos and then matching pants. So whether your whole team is wearing black pants, your whole team is wearing khakis, make sure that everyone is wearing the correct pants. Make sure that each team has the minimum number of players to play. On game day, the minimum number you need to compete and not have it be counted as a forfeit is 2 athletes and 2 partners. Anything outside of that or below those 2 numbers, the game would be considered a forfeit. You could still play an exhibition game with whoever you have. Say you have 2 athletes and 4 partners, or 1 athlete and 4 partners. You could still compete, but that would just be considered an exhibition game. The forfeit would go down and be recorded as an 8-0 win for the team who did not forfeit. So it's a pretty big swing. The other team gets an automatic win for their record tracking and 8 points while you get 0. So please try to make sure that you have your rostered members attending your matches. Finally, the host site head coach will host the head coaches meeting. And that's pretty much just going over, making sure that both teams have who they say they have competing, and any other sort of logistics, such as what court number is which, if you have 2 teams, first 2 teams, and anything like that. The visiting coach, we recommend that you bring some snacks for your team. Some of your schools are pretty close to each other, so you don't have too long of a drive, but there are some schools who do have quite a journey to get to each match. So please make sure your team has some snacks, some water. Just make sure they're not eating snacks on the bench or during the match. If you do need to bring your bocce court, please bring the entire court. Bring your PVC pipes, bring your connectors, bring your paddle, bring your balls, bring your tape measure. If the visiting school only has 1 set of everything, you will need to bring all of your bocce items. The pipes can be bungee corded together and transported in the back of the bus. It works out pretty well if you put them in batches of 14. So that's an option, but you can also reach out to the opposing school, the host school, and ask them if they have extra materials. A lot of schools do have more than 1 court if they've been around for a while. So just double check so you're not lugging that around as extra if it's unnecessary. Please arrive at least 20 minutes before the game starts if possible. Have your team already in their polos and their uniforms, and then you will attend the head coaches meeting. So this is what the play schedule would look like. If both schools have only 1 team, 1 court will be set up. Team A plays team B. There's 5 minutes in between, and then both teams play each other again. If they're tied after that, there is the optional golden frame. If each school has 2 teams, you'll set 2 courts up and follow this play schedule listed here. Game 1, there's going to be a game on court 1 and on court 2 running simultaneously. Then you'll change, and school A, team 1, would play school B, team 2, and vice versa. You would just switch the teams that you played. Again, if you're tied 2-2 after all of those games, then you can do the optional golden frame. A little more about the golden frame. The way this works is each team will choose 4 teammates. It will be a 1 frame roll off. You will choose 2 athletes and 2 partners. They must be from the same team. So if you have 2 teams at your school, you can only choose these 4 players from 1 team. You can't combine 2 teams to make this 4. A coin toss will be had, and all regular rules will apply, but there are no timeouts in the golden frame. And I just want to reiterate one more time that this golden frame does not count towards your individual team record or anything like that for your school. It is just, it's kind of for bragging rights. It's for just to break a tie if you want to do that. But again, we are not tracking the golden frame. So for results tracking, each individual team will have their records kept through the season. So you may have 2 teams at your school and your team A makes the playoffs, but your team B does not. That situation happens quite often now that not all schools will make playoffs. The way that we record and track the standings and how we look at it will be the win percentage and then head to head and points scored. This is why it's very important that the score sheets are filled out correctly and as soon as possible. We have a lot of matches and games to track, so we can't really get behind on this, and we need your help with that. Finally, some supporting materials. Here's an example, head coach's meeting agenda. Just go over the schedule, introduce them to the officials that will be on their court. You can make sure each team has the right number of players. If any certain player needs a one-on-one or a paraprofessional sitting with them, make sure to grab an extra chair or identify that student so it doesn't appear like they're being coached. And then any additional special needs, such as the need for a ramp, a need for a wheelchair access into the court, hearing or visual impairments, etc. This is what the Bocce lineup scorecard looks like. It's very similar to what the scorecard, the digital one looks like. It's just, again, basically attendance. Who is there from that team? As far as the scripts go, in your Bocce Coaches Resource Guide, on pages 32 and 33 is an example script. So you can use that or have your announcer use that. Or you could take that and add in whatever you'd like to add in if your school has a specific script that they use before games. The Spectator's Guide to Bocce, again, I had mentioned this earlier, you could print copies of this and have this sat out for the spectators to pick up on their way into the gym. This just gives some basic terms, some explanation of how the match works, just because Bocce is for a lot of people, it will be a new sport if they haven't seen a match before. And especially the way our rules work might be a little different than if they say, oh, I'm in a Bocce league down the street. Well, their rules might be a little different than what our unified rules are here for Interscholastic Unified Bocce. All right, we've made it through. So I know Ashley has been monitoring our chat for us, but I am going to stop sharing here. And Ash, if we want to stop the recording, we can do that. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask out loud, you're welcome to do